A single massive iron link lies rusting inside the Naval Museum. Forged during a desperate era, this 600-pound chunk of metal belonged to a colossal chain stretched across the Golden Horn. Invading fleets smashed violently against its unyielding bulk during endless maritime sieges. Defending soldiers watched from limestone towers as wooden hulls splintered beneath the dark waves. The sea swallowed them whole. Today, golden hour drone shots reveal a radically different skyline over the glittering Bosphorus Strait. Istanbul has evolved into an unstoppable titan of glass, asphalt, and submarine steel. To comprehend this modern transcontinental megacity, we must unearth the brutal engineering that clamped Europe and Asia together. Generations of visionaries reshaped this jagged landscape using fire, stone, and sheer human will. History bleeds from these stones. Centuries before tourists flooded the waterfront promenade, a Greek colonist named Byzas of Megara stood on a rocky promontory scanning the horizon. Legend dictates that an oracle commanded him to build his new settlement opposite the city of the blind. Looking across the churning water, he saw the earlier colony of Chalcedon and realized they had completely missed the superior, highly defensible peninsula on the European side. In 657 BC, his workers began laying the first foundation stones of Byzantium right here. Growth brought massive geographic challenges. Fresh water was scarce across the hilly terrain, forcing early engineers to carve vast reservoirs deep into the bedrock. Roman Emperor Constantine the Great recognized the unmatched strategic value of this choke point in 330 AD, rebranding the expanding settlement as Constantinople. He immediately ordered the construction of aqueducts that stretched for hundreds of kilometers into the Thracian forests. Stonemasons chiseled blocks while skyline cranes of the ancient world hoisted heavy pillars into place. The sheer scale was terrifying. To protect his newly minted imperial capital, Constantine initiated defensive perimeters that his successors would eventually upgrade into the legendary Theodosian walls. These formidable barriers stretched roughly 5.5 kilometers across the peninsula, rising like an impenetrable limestone cliff. Enemy armies stared at three successive tiers of fortification, completely baffled by the advanced military architecture. Behind these walls, urban planners completely reorganized the street grid, constructing massive forums paved with shiny marble. It was a true metropolis. Grain ships arrived daily at the bustling ancient docks, feeding a rapidly swelling population that quickly surpassed 500,000 souls. Walking these streets meant navigating crowded markets, dodging heavy cargo wagons, and breathing the thick smoke of brass foundries. Earthquakes frequently shattered the illusion of permanence, requiring a constant grinding cycle of demolition and masonry repair. Surveyors constantly redrew the city maps as neighborhoods burned and rose again from the ashes. Survival demanded relentless structural adaptation. As the Roman Empire fractured, the city embarked on an era of unprecedented megaprojects that defied the laws of physics. Emperor Justinian commissioned architects Isidore of Miletus and Anthemius of Tralles to build a cathedral that would eclipse anything existing on Earth. They began drafting architectural blueprints for Hagia Sophia in 532 AD, mobilizing a workforce of 10,000 laborers. Transport galleys hauled over 30 million pounds of exotic marble from quarries across the Mediterranean. The resulting dome was revolutionary. Spanning 31 meters in diameter, the massive brick canopy seemed to float on a ring of light, defying gravity through an ingenious system of pendentives. Mortar mixed with crushed brick provided elasticity, allowing the enormous structure to flex and survive the violent tremors tearing through the fault lines below. Centuries later, a completely different architectural genius would redefine the skyline yet again under the banner of a new empire. Following the dramatic 1453 Ottoman conquest, Sultan Mehmed II initiated an aggressive reconstruction campaign to revive the battered urban core. Demolition crews cleared away rubble. However, it was the legendary Ottoman chief architect Mimar Sinan who truly engineered the transformation of Istanbul during the 16th century. Sinan supervised the construction of over 300 major infrastructure projects, including sprawling mosque complexes, grand aqueducts, and fortified bridges. His masterpiece, the Süleymaniye Mosque, required thousands of stonecutters working tirelessly to raise its four towering minarets above the Golden Horn. Lead sheets covered the cascading domes, while workers on massive wooden scaffolding towers protected the delicate inner masonry from the harsh, salty coastal rain. The foundation alone took years. Workers pounded massive wooden piles deep into the unstable soil, deliberately leaving the trench open to settle before adding a single block of limestone. As maritime trade exploded, the waterfront transformed into a frantic hub where dock workers loaded endless crates of Anatolian timber and fine ceramics. Cargo ships in harbor multiplied rapidly as the empire consolidated its absolute grip on the primary trade arteries connecting Europe and Asia. By the late 19th century, industrialization violently crashed into the ancient urban fabric of Istanbul. Steam trains demanded iron railways. European engineers blasted through Byzantine ruins to lay tracks for the Orient Express, forever altering the historic peninsula's topography. Heavy machinery replaced simple pulleys, and electric power grids slowly crept across the narrow, winding streets of the Galata district. Paving crews poured asphalt over ancient cobblestones, desperately trying to accommodate the sudden influx of motorized traffic choking the historic thoroughfares. Bridge aerials captured the opening of the original Galata Bridge, a floating pontoon structure that finally connected the two distinct halves of the European side. This steel artery changed everything. Following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, modern founder Mustafa Kemal Atatürk shifted the national capital to Ankara, leaving the new Republic of Turkey and its largest metropolis in a strange state of suspended animation. Yet, this brief pause merely set the stage for a late 20th century population explosion that would stretch the city limits to the breaking point. Millions of rural migrants flooded into the concrete valleys, rapidly constructing informal neighborhoods known as Gesikondular virtually overnight on the steep hillsides. Urban planners desperately drafted expansion maps while cement trucks rumbled through the dark streets pouring foundations for high-rise apartment blocks. The sheer density was overwhelming. To alleviate the crushing pressure on the overcrowded ferry systems, engineers finally realized a dream first proposed by an Ottoman sultan over a century earlier. They decided to tunnel directly beneath the Bosphorus Strait, challenging the vicious underwater currents and treacherous geology. The first suspension bridge opened in 1973, lifting a massive ribbon of asphalt 64 meters above the churning water, carrying hundreds of thousands of vehicles daily. Istanbul construction site aerial views showcased a city desperately trying to stitch its fractured geography into a unified, functioning whole. The cost was astronomically high. Beneath the roaring traffic and towering concrete skyline lies a vast, forgotten world of submerged architecture. The ancient basilica cistern, built by Justinian in the 6th century, features an underground forest of 336 marble columns rising from dark, still waters. Slaves dragged these salvaged pillars from ruined pagan temples, repurposing them to support a brick vault that held 80,000 cubic meters of emergency drinking water. Subterranean aqueducts fed this massive chamber, protecting the Byzantine capital from deadly sieges that routinely cut off external river supplies. Water shaped this hidden realm. Centuries later, 19th century engineers dug the tunnel, a short underground funicular railway designed to haul weary pedestrians up the steep slope of Pira. It stands as the second oldest subterranean urban rail line in the world, its original steam-powered engines operating inside soot-stained brick tunnels. Today, modern subway tunnels bore aggressively through the solid rock, weaving an incredibly complex transit matrix far below the historical layers. Tunnel boring machines dig relentlessly 24 hours a day, their massive rotating cutter heads chewing through millions of tons of prehistoric sediment. Archaeologists constantly halt these machines. During the recent construction of the Yenikapi transfer station, subway workers accidentally breached a massive wall of dark mud, uncovering the ancient harbor of Theodosius. Researchers cataloged 37 incredibly preserved Byzantine shipwrecks perfectly entombed in the silt, delaying the massive transit project by nearly a decade. This profound clash between past and present defines the modern Istanbul urban planning map, where every newly dug trench risks unearthing a forgotten imperial secret. Invisible networks of fiber optics now run directly alongside ancient Roman drainage shafts, pooling with the digital lifeblood of the global economy. Heavy data flows beneath ruins. Even the municipal sewage systems tell a story of layered survival, integrating Ottoman brick conduits into modern, high-capacity underground pipes that flush waste away from the pristine coastline. Exploring the deep underground reveals how political power structures dictated who received clean water, with imperial palaces enjoying dedicated stone channels while common districts relied on public fountains. Secret escape tunnels still branch out beneath the Topkapi Palace complex, originally designed to secretly evacuate the Sultan during brutal palace coups. Security forces eventually sealed many of these dark corridors, leaving them to the rats, the dampness, and the crumbling dust of oxidized iron. Military paranoia drove subterranean engineering. Down in the pitch-black depths, structural engineers quietly monitor the seismic joints of the mighty Marmaray tunnel. Opened in 2013, this staggering 13.6-kilometer rail tube sits right on the jagged edge of the deadly North Anatolian Fault line. Immersed concrete tube segments were floated out into the churning strait and carefully lowered into a pre-dredged trench on the seafloor. Rubber gaskets between these colossal sections allow the entire tunnel to bend and flex like a massive snake during a major earthquake. The engineering is absolutely terrifying. Back on the surface, a helicopter aerial over city districts reveals a breathtaking vertical explosion of 21st-century ambition. Financial centers in Levant feature gleaming glass towers that rival the corporate skylines of London or New York. Pedestrians crossing busy intersection zones navigate beneath massive digital billboards flashing real-time stock quotes above time-lapse traffic lights. Istanbul financial district crowd movement resembles a synchronized high-speed dance beneath rainy neon streets. Global capital demands extreme density. Mega projects continue to aggressively reshape the local environment, driven by an insatiable thirst for regional dominance. The colossal $4 billion Eurasia Tunnel opened in 2016, plunging a terrifying 106 meters below sea level to provide a double-deck highway and concrete highway cloverleafs for impatient commuters. Further north, the massive spans of the Yavuz Sultan Selim Bridge cross the strait, featuring pylons rising an astonishing 322 meters, where a drone flying through clouds captures the cinematic fog over rooftops. Planners recently unveiled the massive Galataport Cruise Terminal, an architectural marvel featuring the world's first fully underground passenger facility. Giant cruise ships dock gracefully. Hydraulic hatches completely conceal customs officers and baggage handlers beneath the waterfront promenade, keeping the historic sightlines completely clear of industrial clutter. Yet operating heavy machinery on this massive scale invites severe ecological and social consequences for the vulnerable surrounding landscape. Climate change brings punishing summer heat waves, violently shrinking the municipal reservoirs that desperately supply drinking water to nearly 16 million residents. Architects pointing at models in glass offices now prioritize smart city tech, integrating advanced rainwater harvesting and solar glass into every new luxury high-rise. The future looks highly uncertain. Urban planners endlessly debate the controversial Canal Istanbul proposal, an unimaginably massive artificial waterway designed to bypass the congested Bosphorus entirely. Supporters argue it will save the historic straits from dangerous oil tankers, while critics fear a catastrophic environmental collapse of the delicate inland sea. Istanbul's skyline cranes continue swinging regardless of the political noise, pouring fresh concrete over ancient battlefields. Welding steel beams at dizzying heights has become the modern equivalent of stacking Roman limestone blocks. Progress simply refuses to stop. No other city on Earth can claim to have birthed, nurtured, and buried so many distinct, warring civilizations within a single, jagged geographical footprint. The deep physical layers of Turkey perfectly mirror the chaotic, beautiful evolution of human ambition. Every time a subway train arriving at station platforms screeches to a halt, it rolls over the crushed dreams of forgotten emperors. When the tide hitting ancient seawall stones recedes, it exposes the raw, unpolished truth of our collective urban history. We are temporary builders here. Empires rise in blood, steel, and concrete, only to inevitably sink back into the dark mud of the Golden Horn. What survives is the relentless pulsing energy of a metropolis that absolutely refuses to be washed away by the tides of time. The streets keep humming as millions wake up to navigate this endless, breathing monument. They walk upon the shoulders of giants without ever looking straight down. The city endures it all.